All right, let's dive into one of America's most infamous cold cases. This isn't just an old mystery, it's a story about terror, media, and a killer who played a game with an entire nation. We're talking, of course, about the Zodiac Killer.
So, why are we still so obsessed with this case, more than 50 years later? Well, it's because this is way more than just a whodunit. The Zodiac story is really a terrifying lesson in how one person, just one, can find the cracks in a system and basically hold an entire region hostage with fear. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're not trying to get morbid or to glorify this guy. The goal is to break it all down, right? To look at what went wrong and figure out what lessons we can actually pull from this, so hopefully something like it never ever happens again.
Okay, so to really get how this all went down, you gotta put yourself back in that time period. We need to see the world the way it was back then. So who was the Zodiac Killer? Well, officially, he's a ghost, an unidentified serial killer tied to 5 confirmed murders, though he claimed a lot more. This guy wasn't just a killer, he was a master of terror who loved to taunt the police. And then, poof, he vanished. And you have to understand the world he was operating in. The late 60s, it was a chaotic time. You had all this social unrest, crime was on the rise, and from a police standpoint, the tech just wasn't there. Think about it. No DNA profiling, no internet, no centralized databases. Police departments barely talked to each other. It was the perfect environment for a killer like the Zodiac to slip through the cracks.
All right, let's get into the timeline. These are the attacks we know for sure were him.
It all started in late 1968 and just escalated. He went from attacking teenagers in remote spots to this bizarre, really theatrical stabbing in broad daylight wearing a full-on executioner's hood. And then he got even bolder, killing a taxi driver right in a busy San Francisco neighborhood. Every single attack was designed to be more shocking than the last. But here's the thing. The violence was only part of his plan. What made the Zodiac a completely different kind of monster was his craving for the spotlight. Can you imagine? You're an editor at the San Francisco Chronicle, you open your mail and a letter starts with that line. It's just bone-chilling. This guy wasn't hiding in the shadows, he was a performer, and he was forcing the media to give him the stage. And he had this whole strategy, this twisted formula. Step 1, commit a horrifying crime. Step 2, send a letter to the press with details only he could possibly know as proof. And then the real kicker, he'd include these bizarre ciphers and demand they be printed on the front page, or else he'd kill again. He basically weaponized the newspapers. And those ciphers were no joke. One of them, the so-called 340 cipher, sat unsolved for, get this, 51 years. For over half a century, nobody could crack it. And who finally did in 2020? Not the FBI, but a team of amateur codebreakers from around the world. Just incredible. So what was in these messages once they were decoded? Was it some grand motive? Nope. It was all ego. The ciphers gave us a direct look inside his head. He was bragging, making fun of the cops, talking about how much fun he was having. It was a pure power trip, plain and simple. Which brings us to the biggest question of all, right? They had his letters, they had his handwriting, they had eyewitness descriptions, they had a profile. So how in the world did he get away with it? Why did the case go cold? Well, this right here tells a huge part of the story. Just look at the difference between then and now. In the 60s, you had different police departments basically working in silos with file cabinets and index cards. No DNA, no shared digital records. Today, it's all about databases, advanced forensics, instant communication. The Zodiac was hunting in a world full of investigative blind spots. And then there's this moment, just one moment that could have changed everything. It's almost painful to think about. Right after the taxi driver murder in Presidio Heights, there was a mix-up on the police radio. The dispatcher gave out the wrong description for the suspect. A patrol car actually passed a man who fit the correct description, but because of that radio call, they just drove right by him. He was that close to being caught. And even though they couldn't catch him, the FBI's behavioral experts were building a pretty clear picture of who this guy was. They saw someone who was highly organized, who planned his attacks meticulously, someone who needed to be in control. And look at this. He created a brand for himself, right? The name, the crosshair symbol, the ciphers, it was all for his own psychological thrill. This case was foundational for what we now call criminal profiling.
So the big question is, what did we actually learn from all this? The case might be unsolved, but its legacy is absolutely everywhere. And just to be super clear, the point of looking back at this isn't to make the Zodiac some kind of legend. It's the opposite. It's about dissecting a failure so we can learn from it and hopefully stop future tragedies before they start. Because believe it or not, some good did come out of this nightmare. The failures in the Zodiac case forced law enforcement to change, big time. We saw the creation of multi-agency task forces, where different departments actually work together. The media and the police developed new protocols for handling killers who crave attention. And it pushed huge advances in forensics for cold cases and, as we said, criminal profiling. So, in a strange way, the hunt for the Zodiac forced us to become much, much better at hunting all the others. So here's where we land. We'll probably never know for sure who was behind that executioner's hood. His identity is a mystery. But his legacy? Well, that's not a mystery at all. It's in how police investigations are run, it's in how the media covers crime, it's even in our own awareness of the world. He changed things. And the question that leaves us with is a pretty heavy one. Have we learned enough to make sure there's never another Zodiac?